just always remember that your life is a lot better without gambling, and never give up. It doesn't matter how fucked up you think the situation is. Like, seriously, human beings are really resilient, and you can literally be on death's door and turn it around. It doesn't take long to turn it around. It took me 12 months, and my life's been better than it ever has, so never give up.
Without question, a peer aid service, if that was around and I knew about it at the time and could have spoke to someone, it would have got me into recovery a lot sooner. I've got no doubts about that.
Hello and welcome to Series 4 of the Invisible Addiction podcast. If you're a new listener, hi. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to this episode. It was a high-pitched hi, wasn't it? And of course, if you're a long-time listener of the podcast, I hope you've been keeping well. It's great to be back. Shortly, we'll be hearing Ben Hamilton's inspirational story. And a little later on, we'll also be hearing from Matt Blanks, who works for Peer Aid and the charity Bet No More UK. Before we go any further, I would like to make a short disclaimer and say that this is an informational podcast. If you're experiencing gambling problems, of course, I hope you relate to the stories you hear. That's what this podcast is all about. But please do seek professional help. Links to that support can be found on the Invisible Addiction website, www.theinvisibleaddiction.com/support. Right, without further ado, let's crack on with the podcast. Okay, so joining us on the other end of the line today is Ben Hamilton, all the way from Byron Bay, Australia. He's come onto the podcast to share his gambling addiction story and to tell us more about his fantastic work with Kickin The Punt, a community which he founded in January 2020. Ben has worked tirelessly to support people who have experienced gambling problems, and Kickin The Punt has gained thousands of followers from across the globe, not least because of Ben's honesty and continued campaigning to change the way society views gambling. I'm a huge fan of his, and I'm delighted to welcome him to the Invisible Addiction podcast. It gives me great pleasure to introduce him. Ben, thanks for joining us today. How are you doing?
My pleasure, mate. Good, mate. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, no, thanks for coming on. So yeah, I suppose before we dive into your story, could you give the listeners maybe a quick introduction about your background and experience? So like where you grew up, what you do for a living, etc., etc.
Yeah, so I was born in Newcastle, Australia, which is in New South Wales. I spent my childhood in the Northern Rivers, New South Wales, which is pretty much on the border of Queensland and New South Wales. I had a reasonably normal upbringing. I did have, my parents had issues and stuff with gambling growing up, so it was always a thing that really sort of, stopped them from getting ahead, I suppose. But, like I had a good group of mates who I grew up with, who I'm still really close today. Right now, I run my own tiling business. I'm a floor and wall tiler by trade. I'm married to my wife, Jasmine. I've got a little boy, a little 3-year-old named August, and things are pretty good right now for us.
Nice. How's lockdown been for you, by the way, down under?
It hasn't really, like in certain places in Australia, like Melbourne and Victoria, for instance, they got really badly affected by it. I think we've been very fortunate to not really. I mean, when it initially, like early days of Corona, like there was a lot of I suppose trepidation in the air as far as what was going to happen, and people wanting to get their jobs and finished and all that sort of stuff. And it was a bit hectic for a couple of weeks, but really it's just been business as usual for us. I mean, if anything, we're busier than we've ever been. So not to say that we'll never not busy, but it hasn't really bothered us at all, like really. So we've been very fortunate in that respect. And I've known, a lot of people that I'm close to that have had, some really bad, been severely impacted by it. So we're fortunate, and I'm happy that we haven't had to experience any of that stuff, thankfully.
No,
but I really do feel for the people that have. It's a shit thing.
Yeah, 100%. I've got a lot of friends that are musicians or involved in the music business, the entertainment business, and that's just been completely wiped out. It's
I can imagine.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, really tough. Well, Ben, I mean, look, we're obviously going to talk about your gambling addiction story. So I don't know if you want to just kind of kick us off and perhaps just talk to us about or tell us like how it started for you.
Yeah, sure. I've had a lot of time to reflect on this. Like, obviously, I've spoken about it at length before, plenty of times. I think probably the most important thing that I like to sort of tell people is like my gambling was intergenerational. Like that I know of, I'm a fourth generation gambler, so gambling's been very prevalent in my family, in my bloodline. You know, and without getting into other people's stories, as far as my family is concerned, it's had a big impact on, you know, that many people in my family. So I had a predisposition to it. I lived in a household where, again, without going into too much about my parents' personal stuff, but you know, they were negatively affected by gambling. My earliest memory as a child was gambling. I always knew that my mum and dad and my grandparents would go to the club on, you know, on the Thursday or Friday night. That's my first memory as a kid, like as a 3 or 4 year old. Not much older than what my son is now, because of them going to going to this place. And I soon worked out that if they came home from this place and they were happy, that they had won something. If they came home and they were sad and arguing and all the rest of it, that they didn't win. So I worked that out at a very young age. So, you know, fast forward to turning 18 years old, I pretty much hit the ground running. My addiction was to poker machines, on slot machines. We call them pokies over here in Australia.
Right.
The first few years of gambling for me, like once you turn 18 here, you're allowed to gamble. It was kind of like, it was any opportunity I had, I did it, but it wasn't something that I would say completely consumed my life, because I never really had, I mean, it stopped me early days from really going anywhere or achieving much, because any spare cent I had, I would gamble with it. And, you know, it was normalized in my household. It was normalized to live week to week. So that's just the pattern that I fell into. But I suppose early 20s, it's really started to take over, and I say pilot my life. Basically from the age of 21 to the age of 29, it was it was in the driver's seat. So my gambling, you know, pretty much from the age of 18 to 25 was any opportunity that I had, and I never had savings or anything like that. Any money that I had left over, and a lot of the times money that was meant for bills, etc., would be gambled, and that was just my life. And I normalized it, and you know, I made justifications, you know, to myself, and that, you know, no one really said too much of it, and I thought it was pretty normal, because I did see a lot of other people doing it, and I was known in my close group of mates to be the guy that gambled. And the boys had, you know, many times had spoken to me about it, but they always, like, they loved me and cared about me, so they would always, you know, lend me money or you know, or not go too hard on me. But when I met my wife, that's when, you know, things started to change a little bit with my gambling. For the first 12 months, she didn't really say much, but once we sort of got serious, that's when she really started to question what I was doing. And you know, 2016 was my first suicide attempt, and that's sort of after that. That's when I thought, you know, I've actually told you this before, I don't like the term problem gambler, and I don't like saying the word, I had a problem. I understand why people say it, but that was when I first sort of acknowledged the fact that I had, you know, been completely consumed by the addiction. So I think for me, it took me a long time to acknowledge that, and acknowledge the fact that I wasn't in control, I suppose, of my life, not of my gambling, but just in my life in general. So after that, sort of suicide attempt, I really started getting some extensive therapy. You know, and I'm someone who's been very fortunate in that respect. I was in the army, and I was medically discharged with PTSD, which wasn't service related. It was from another incident, which I won't go into. And so basically over here, like, that gave me, upon leaving the military, I had free mental health care essentially, like, for the rest of my life, because I was medically discharged. So I'm someone that's had a really supportive wife, top tier mental health care, good mates, people that really wanted me to, you know, to beat this. And it still took me, you know, the better part of 4 years and another suicide attempt to really sort of stop. So it just goes to show, like, there's a lot of people out there that don't even have access to that kind of mental health care, and they still, you know, they still struggle, and many people lose their lives, and that's probably the saddest thing. 2018 was the second suicide attempt, and I suppose that's the point where that was when I really was like, I need to fucking change something, otherwise I'm gonna die. So, you know, the first one in 2016 was scary, but I still sort of gambled, and my whole relationship with gambling changed. It became way less frequent because obviously my wife wouldn't allow it, because she didn't want that shit in her house, and she didn't want to see me, you know, continue to railroad us financially, and, you know, mentally and everything else. So I would have to become a lot more secretive, deceptive. So then that became an addiction in itself. That whole, you know, months prior to the event, planning, strategizing, doing this, doing that, like, that became a whole cycle within itself. And that was fostered in by the years of being deceptive of myself, you know, prior to meeting my wife, like the years of justifying shit in your head why you can do this, etc. And, you know, it was really hard. Looking back on it now, it was really hard. But 2018, that second sort of suicide attempt, it was one of those days where people always think that when you try to end your life, it's because you lose everything. That particular day, I couldn't not win. I won everything I touched. I won. I won everywhere. And my cycle by that point was, I would plan an event. I would get access to the money somehow off my wife. I'd trick her or wear her down until she eventually yielded the money to me. And then I would, you know, quickly pull it out of the account or transfer it into another account she didn't have access to, turn off my phone, and then gamble as hard and fast as I could, drink as hard and fast as I could, and then lose everything. And then I'd go home and, you know, with my tail between my legs, and start the cycle again. That was it. It was self-destructive. But that particular day and evening, because it led into evening, like I started around 11 o'clock on the day, I just couldn't, like, I just won, like, endlessly won. And I was driving to a third venue, like, completely intoxicated, not proud of that, like, something that I don't usually do. And I just had this thought just struck me that I can't go home tonight because I'm not going to lose. And I just decided to run my car off the road. You know, thankfully, you know, I wasn't successful in what I was trying to do. My car was essentially a write-off from an insurance point of view, but, you know, the tow truck, I mean, I even remember, you know, people think, again, that whole event was because I lost everything. Like, I even remember trying to give the tow truck driver thousands of dollars to pull my car, and he's like, I can't pull your car out, it's completely fucked. Like, anyway, from that point, like, I remember probably a defining moment of my life. Like, the next day, I remember sort of, you know, waking up and just being completely numb, like, really, like, void of emotion completely. Like, it was a really weird experience. And, you know, my little boy was still crawling then, and he crawled up to me. He's like, Dad, because I was on the floor, just like laying on the floor. And I looked at him, and I didn't feel anything for him anymore. Like, I love my son to death. Like, he's everything to me. And I felt nothing for him at that point. And that's really what really what shook. Really, I don't know. It was the start of something, a change. So it was a real defining moment. I remember going out into the kitchen because at that point we're living with our mother-in-law, and you know, my mother-in-law is a really strong-willed woman, and I was expecting to get completely just destroyed by her. And she just said, "You want a cup of tea?" I said, "Yep, a cuppa." And she's like, you know, and by this point, they all knew, like my wife's family, they all knew, they all loved me, they all cared about me, but they all knew what I was going through. They knew, you know, and basically she just said, you just got, there's 2 cards left in the deck, you either fight or you die. So, well, at that point I chose to fight. And often we see people that come to us and they're at the bottom of the barrel and they're fucking on death's door, basically, you know, like even that one guy today, same thing, similar sort of story. And I go, it's, you can think you're at your lowest of lows, but I always tell people, no matter how fucked up you think your life is, you can always turn it around if you don't give up. And so I chose that day to not give up. And it was hard. Like for weeks after that, I was, you know, in a blur, still that numb feeling and the suicide thoughts and all that sort of shit. And they hung around for a long time after. But what I did, like at that point, I was running my own business. I had jobs on the go. I'd lost my car, lost my license because the police came. You know, my marriage was basically null and void at that point. My wife didn't want to be with me anymore. And you know, I had legal issues as well. I had to go to court. Like the list was fucking endless. Like I was a defeated man with all this shit just on my shoulders. So I just sat there and what I actually started to do was I journaled. I wrote it all down. And I just started doing one thing at a time. That's what I tell people, like when you get to this point, you feel like there's so much shit you fucked up and you can't fix it. But if you just put it all somewhere and just deal with one thing at a time, you can deal with it. And that's exactly what I did. So the first thing I did, solicitor, got that sorted, you know. So I knew I had to go to court. I knew I had to engage with the solicitor because I knew I was in trouble. Like it was a serious charge, high range drink driving and crashed my car. I was in trouble. So squared that away. Went down to mechanics. Sort of like, car was fucked, but he said, look, your car's fucked, but I can fix it. But it's going to cost you maybe 10, 15 grand. I don't know. Yeah, I said, fine, just do it. I didn't even have the money for it. He goes, I just told him what happened. And this is what we founded Kickin The Punt on. It's this brutal honesty. I told the dude exactly what happened. I told him I was a gambling addict. I told him I crashed my car. I just told him the whole fucking story of the day. And he just said, you don't have any money. I said, I don't have much money left. I said, but he knew that I was a tradesman and that was the only way to make money. So he said, just, I'll fix your car and you fucking pay me when you can. And that just blew me away. The guy didn't even know who the fuck I was.
That's amazing.
But he was prepared to just fix my car. So that sorted that out. And then I went back in and linked in with the psychologist, psychiatrist, all that sort of stuff again. Started prioritizing therapy. I tried as best as I could, I suppose, to try and comfort my wife. But again, something I always tell people at that point, no matter what you say to the people you care about, they're not going to listen to you because you've let them down so many times that until you show them something, they're not going to listen. So I tried that, and you know, she was as patient as she could be in that circumstance. But before you know it, 3 months down the track, my jobs are getting done. We're working around it. I'm being completely honest with my clients. They see me rock up in my wife's car, and it's embarrassing as fuck. Pulling all my shit out of my wife's car and then getting dropped off to work. Like, it doesn't really foster much confidence in the client seeing a man get dropped off by. But again, I'd sit down with the clients, I'd have a cup of coffee, and I'd tell them exactly what the truth. And people respected that, and it made my life easier. And then within 3 months, court was done. I was okay. I was lucky. I told the truth. The judge listened. He didn't put me in jail. My car was fixed. My car was paid for. My jobs were getting done. My marriage wasn't completely gone. That's what I tell people all the time. One thing at a time. You can't possibly look at everything that you fucked up in front of you. You get overwhelmed. You either go back and gamble or you end your fucking life. So just one thing at a time. That's exactly what I did. And that's what I try and live by now. So that event was critical. And I went 6 months without gambling after that event. And that's the longest I've ever gone. And, you know, the only reason why I went that 6 months is because I was numb. Like, I was numb for 6 months. Like, I still thought about suicide. You know, I'd go to places where I would suicide, and I'd just sit there and I'd sit in that place to try and feel something. I did that for 6 months. So it was, I thought that I'd beaten gambling, you know, at that point, but I hadn't. I was just numb to it. I was completely like that whole event, just like literally, if you picture your mind and your mental health, a sheet of glass, it just shattered the whole bit of glass, and it was just like, there was nothing there. So I ended up gambling again a few more times after that. And thankfully, like, they weren't like destructive. They weren't just, they were fucking, like, for my marriage and my own, you know, my wife's well-being, they were, but they weren't like to that extent. Because
Ben, what triggered you, like, at this point? What led you back into the gambling? Yeah,
I think honestly, like, I think about it a lot. I got confident, the thinking that I had, you know, it didn't do anything for me anymore, but it was still there. And I think it was a way for me to start feeling something again, more than anything. But I'm not entirely sure. I know the first time I baited my wife into an argument and made her feel like she was the reason why I did it. So, which was a terrible thing to do. But I used that as an excuse to do it. And I also knew that a client had just given me like a big cash deposit for a job. So I was cashed up and I knew that I could go, you know, do it. So basically I did it. But I think, you know, there was, you know, a few times after that, but it wasn't doing the same thing for me anymore. And I was really, I was just really a lot more reflective after that attempt on my life. And when I then would gamble, like, yeah, it was still exciting to some point, but it wasn't the same. It didn't feel as the way it felt before, because the whole cycle that I had built prior, the planning and all that sort of shit, like, that was completely shattered, because, you know, it was always in the back of my mind, if I plan an event and then I have one of those days, nights where I just win, I can't end that cycle. And so that was like a bit of self-preservation, I suppose, in the back of my mind. And I think that's what really helped me in the long run, that I broke that cycle of deception, not so much the cycle of gambling, but more the cycle of deception and the planning prior to doing the actual gambling. And it all come back to childhood stuff and traumas that hadn't been addressed with self-sabotage. Like, that's, you know, I've seen self-sabotage my whole life, so that was normal for me. So that was a way for me to self-sabotage when things would get good in my life. I didn't want them to be good, so I would sabotage them. And gambling is the perfect tool for self-sabotage. So anyway, there was the last time I gambled, 9th of December 2019, same thing, had an argument, baited my wife into an argument, had money, had access to money, took off. So I missed one critical thing. After I crashed my car, this is probably this fucking thing. This is probably why I'm still sitting here more than anything, to be honest. Because I was drink driving, when I finally got my license back, I had to have a breathalyzer or an interlock device fitted into my car. So every time I would sit in my car, before I could turn the engine on, I'd have to blow into a breathalyzer, which we call it over here, that reads any alcohol or anything like that in your breath. Yeah. And so a big part of my cycle was go to the pub, drink really quickly, so because I knew I was doing the wrong thing, gamble, and then the alcohol would, like, you know, it was hand in hand with my gambling, the alcohol. Like, I wouldn't drink at home or anything like that, but when I go to the pub or the club, I would drink to gamble. But this fucking annoying thing, like, I'd finish work in the afternoon and I knew that I couldn't, like, go to the pub and have a couple of beers and gamble and then like, she would find out because I wouldn't be able to drive my car home. So this thing that they put in my car, even though it was a pain in the ass and it was super fucking expensive to have, it literally broke that cycle of that pre-planning cycle. Like I had to then evolve it into another plan where I wouldn't have transportation. And one of my biggest fears was not being able to go home at the end of the night. So it completely fucked my cycle. And that's where I really started to break it down. Anyway, fast forward back to that last time, 9th of December 2019, had access to money at about, I don't know, I think it was about $1,600 in my account that she couldn't access. Pulled out 800, well, I pulled out 400, blew it, pulled out another 400, blew it. You know, I had a motel booked across from the pub where I was gambling. It was basically free reign. But for whatever reason, I don't know what the fuck it was. And I just can't remember what it was, but I was halfway through my second beer. And, you know, I still had $800 to play with, which is, you know, another couple of hours of gambling for me. I just put my beer down. I walked out. I don't know why. I really don't know. I just did it. And then I went back to the motel I was at and just cried for hours and felt fucking disgusting. And I called my wife at about 10 o'clock. I said, can I please come home? She said, yep, come home. Wake up the next day. I said, never again. And this was been never again. From that, but that's when we started Kicking the Punt, or the idea of Kicking the Punt formed after that suicide attempt in 2018, but we never acted on it. Then my wife and I started Kicking the Punt, you know, late December, early January 2020. That's when we sort of started on the socials, I suppose. That's when you want to call it started. But that's what saved me, because I started realising that there was way more people that were dealing with this particular issue than what I actually was.
Sorry about that, guys. Ben had to take his young son to bed. We'll hear again shortly from him, but next up is a bit of a first for the Invisible Addiction. We're going to have another guest, Matt Blanks from Peer Aid and the charity Bet No More UK. Here's a little bit more about them. Bet No More UK was established in 2013. Our charitable mission is to address gambling harms impacting on individuals, affected others, and UK communities. The lived experience of disruptive gambling behaviour, addiction, and recovery is at the heart of our work. We are so grateful to those who donate their life narratives, time and energy in order to help others. And this includes members of our management board, support staff and volunteers, as well as those we seek to help. Our award-winning services are co-produced, meaning they combine the knowledge and insight provided by experts by experience with proven evidence-based approaches. One of those services is Peer Aid, and the service manager, Matt Blanks, joins me now. Matt, thanks for speaking with me. I hope you're well. Let's get straight into it, if we may. So the Peer Aid service is run by experts by experience. How important is that in the work you do?
Yep. Hi, Alex. Thanks for having me on. Obviously, lived experience, I think, is a crucial part of the recovery piece. I think it's vitally important in recovery to speak to those that have kind of walked in your shoes, maybe, you know, shared similar experiences, felt the same things. You know, obviously everyone's recovery is unique, and maybe everyone's journey is unique to them, but there's lots of similarities. You know, if you've ever been in a GA room or a group with other problem gamblers, you just get that instant identification with you know, we kind of call it the nodding head syndrome. I think
a bit like I'm doing now.
Yeah. I think when you're in a group and you are speaking to someone that's lived through problem gambling, you just can connect with that person, and I just can't emphasize how important it is. You know, it just inspires hope that recovery is possible. It empowers people. You know, it's just invaluable. I think, you know, certainly something that helped me on my recovery journey, and I know that it's been really influential in other people's recovery. You know, I can talk to my best friend that doesn't gamble. I can talk to my dad that, you know, hasn't had a problem with gambling and stuff, and they can kind of, you know, maybe have an idea of where I'm coming from, but they just don't get it like a person would that has experienced it. So yeah, I think the lived experience is vitally important.
So as someone with lived experience yourself, tell me how it brought you into peer aid.
Yeah, so I started gambling at the age of 11 with my granddad. He asked me to pick a horse, and of course what happened, it won at 33-1, and kind of went on from there really. Every weekend I'd have a little bet with my granddad. It's kind of like the thing that we did. I was brought up really that gambling was normalised to me. It was never seen as an issue. So I was kind of conditioned from an early age that gambling was okay. Obviously, there was no issues at that age. It's only when I started moving on in life, more gambling came in when I started working. So at the age of 18, I started working in the betting shops, and I did that for 16 years. And obviously, I think that's for a problem gambler, that's the last place you want to be working in that environment. I kind of liken it to an alcoholic working in a pub. If you're pouring drinks and you're watching people drink, the likelihood of you having a drink yourself is really high, and it's no different to a problem gambler working in that environment. I was just surrounded by triggers, taking bets, watching people bet horses, you name it. So I had my own issues with gambling, and it was only when I reached out for help and support, which was actually through Bet No More UK. And so I started my recovery with Bet No More, left the betting shops, started volunteering for Bet No More for a few months, and then I got taken on to do community outreach work. I did that for 10 months in a paid capacity, and then the idea of peer aid was born, and the posts went out for the peer aid positions. So there was 2 coordinators and the service manager, and I actually applied for one of the coordinator roles, and to my delight and surprise, I got offered the service manager role, which I gladly accepted, and is something that I'm proud to lead today. So that's kind of my short version of the journey about how I ended up into peer aid.
Yeah, nice one. So what were the obstacles initially in your own recovery, and how would a service like peer aid have helped you?
Yeah, so obviously my own obstacles and barriers into seeking support and treatment was the fact that I worked in the industry. How can you turn around to your betting operator and say, I've got a problem with gambling? There's no, I couldn't have gone in an office and worked in an admin role. That's the only role available to me was working in the betting shops, and it was definitely something that held me back for years and years. I always knew that I had a problem for probably the best part of 10 years until I actually reached out for help and support, if not longer. But how can it's the only job that I'd ever done. It's the only job that I thought that I could do. Didn't realise that I had skills and I could do other jobs. So that's something that held me back, because I was fearful of losing my job. Obviously you're working with the company's money. Mistakes happen. Cash up at the end of the night, till's £50 short because you might have overpaid someone or not taken money out of a bet or something, and you've exposed yourself as a problem gambler. They're going to think you've stolen the money. So I was really fearful of losing my job. That was the biggest barrier for me, working in the industry. And yeah, without doubt, I think a service like peer aid would have helped me, because it was evident that was the missing piece of me actually committing to recovery, was the fact that I spoke to Frankie from Bet No More, and he was the first person that I'd ever spoke to that that was in recovery, and up to that point I only ever knew gamblers. I only ever knew people that gambled. I never knew anyone that had stopped or been successful with their recovery or anything like that. So, and you also, I think, you feel alone. I think you're so confused. Yeah. How did it get to this stage? Sure, am I the only one like this? All those sorts of things. So to have a service out there that you can speak to, someone that has gone through recovery and in recovery, and making a good job of that. It works in two ways really. One, you know that you're not alone, that there are other people out there like you that have had similar experiences, that have thought about the same things, maybe done similar things to yourself. So yeah, I think without question, a peer aid service, if that was around and I knew about it at the time and could have spoke to someone, it would have got me into recovery a lot sooner. I've got no doubts about that.
For sure. So tell us a bit more about the cohort recruitment process, and how can people volunteer to be a supporter?
Yeah, so the recruitment process. So there's only the sort of main thing we look for is an individual that has 12 months sustainable recovery. So if there's anyone out there that's listening, if you maybe gone through recovery and you want to, maybe volunteer, help to give back, if you've got a minimum 12 months sustainable recovery behind you, you can apply to be a peer supporter. And so there's an application form to fill out, which I can assist you with, or a member of the team can assist you with filling out the application form. And then from there we go through to an interview stage. So we'll interview the prospective peer supporter, and then from there, if sort of thing suitable, then you go on to the pre-training. So we have a couple of getting to know you sessions where the cohort of peer supporters, obviously they'll be going through the training journey together. So it's a good opportunity to share your experiences of gambling and get to know each other and bond. That's one thing we've found in a couple of cohorts we've done to date is there's a real strong unity within the cohorts, and I think that's born about getting to know each other in the beginning process. And then there's also help around digital support and literacy. Anyone that maybe English isn't their strongest subject, certainly wasn't mine at school, I know that. But there's help and support there for you. It shouldn't be something that should put someone off. And then we go into the training. So there's two versions of the training. So there's a full 5-day training course, which is Monday to Friday, or we also offer an evening and weekend delivery, which includes one weekend and 8 evening sessions. Obviously for people that work, that maybe can't take a week off work or things like that, there's the option of doing an evening and weekend delivery. And then upon completing the training, there's some coursework to be completed, and at the end of the completion of the coursework, the individual will be presented with a level 2 award in gambling peer support. So it comes with a qualification, and we also help the individual with their own personal development. So some people might use peer aid as maybe a gateway into maybe paid employment in this sector, or they just want to help and give back and maybe improve other areas of their life, and we'll help and support the individuals with their personal development. But we're also mindful that the individuals coming through this service are on their own recovery journey. So there's lots of robust measures in place to support the peer supporter as much as they're supporting others currently suffering. There's this clinical supervision that we offer on a monthly basis to the peer supporters, and we also have monthly supervisions with their peer aid coordinator. So it's a very structured service. Could lead on to all manner of things, but it's just the skills that people will learn through the training really helps an individual grow and develop, and to be able to offer and provide that really crucial support.
No, fantastic. And so what has been the feedback so far from the users of the service?
Feedback's been amazing, actually. It's actually blown me away, really. It just makes me feel so proud to lead this service. The fact that we have helped so many individuals, and you know, we're going to continue to do so, and not just the feedback from the individuals that have received the support. So we offer 2 types of support. So we have 2 weekly health and wellbeing groups, so that they're 2 hours on a Monday evening and 2 hours on a Thursday evening. So that's individuals that want to maybe receive group support. So kind of similar to the GA structure, really. It's facilitated by people with lived experience. We have a check-in just to see how everyone's week's been, how they're feeling, and then we have a topic, and we all go around the room and everyone gets an opportunity to share around that topic, and it's a great group. It's very supportive. So the feedback from the groups have been really, really good, but we also offer one-to-one support. So if an individual maybe, you know, is a bit worried about joining a group or something like that, they can have one-to-one support with so they'd have weekly session with their peer supporter. So we offer one-to-one and group support. We're also going to start delivering smart recovery meetings as well. I've just completed the qualification for that, as well as my 2 coordinators. So we're going to start offering smart recovery meetings. So there's lots of choice for the individual that is looking for that peer support. And also the feedback from the individuals that have gone through the training, that have got the qualification and giving that support, you know, very committed to the service. You know, they should all be incredibly proud of themselves for what they've achieved. So yeah, the overall, the feedback has been amazing.
How can people access the service if they're interested?
Yeah, so if people want to access the support through Peer Aid, so the way they can do that is through GamCare. Obviously, the service is in partnership with GamCare, so that would be the referral route into Peer Aid. So if anyone out there, you know, struggling, they can, you know, speak to their GamCare therapist when they get referred into treatment, and when they go through the referral process, they will be offered or you know, asked whether they would like that peer support through Peer Aid, and that could be, like I said, through the groups, or it could be through the one-to-one, and then the referrals come through to myself, and then I match them up with one of our peer supporters, and you know, we call it the therapeutic alliance. So the client has got the best of both worlds. You know, they've got that clinical support through their GamCare practitioner, but they've also got that additional support through Peer Aid, someone that's, you know, walked in their shoes, and you know, I think it really enhances recovery, and you know, should hopefully keep people engaged in treatment, having, you know, that therapeutic alliance, having you know, the best of both worlds.
So Matt, how can people get in touch?
Yeah, so if anyone is interested in becoming a peer supporter, you can email me. It's Matt, MATT, @peeraid.org. And also you can find me on LinkedIn, Matt Blanks, BLANKS, or I am on Twitter as well, @MattBlanks4.
Fantastic. Nice one. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time today, Matt. I really do wish you well, and of course, best of luck with the service. And of course, if you're listening and you'd like to connect with Peer Aid on social media, their Twitter handle is @AidPeer. Bet No More's message is clear. Gambling should not compromise any aspect of your health and well-being. If what you have heard today has touched you, please take a look at our website, www.betnomoreuk.org, and follow our social media channels to have a look at what we do, including more information on the Peer Aid service. If you have any concerns around yours or someone else's gambling, please contact the National Gambling Treatment Service helpline that's run 24/7, and their number is 0808 020 0133 for confidential advice and support. Without further ado, let's get back into part 2 of Ben's story.
Yeah, that's when we started kicking the punt, and we started sort of really connecting with a whole lot of other people. And like I've got a really good psychologist. I've got a few good psychologists that I've seen over the years. But when I really started talking to other people that are, this peer support, lived experience sort of stuff, expert by experience, whatever you want to call it, that's what really changed the game for me. I don't know. Good night.
Sorry.
Can I have a kiss?
Oh, bless him.
No, he's a devil, mate.
What a little dude. Yeah.
He's cute now, but he's a devil at the moment.
Is he sort of take after you or more your wife?
Oh, that's open for debate. He looks like me, and he's very similar to both of us. He's very stubborn. My wife and I are both very stubborn.
Yeah. I was going to say, I see he's got the long hair. He's got the long hair.
Yeah, he won't let anyone cut his hair. He likes his long hair, so
he's the modern man.
He is, mate.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, we started. That's when we started Kicking the Punt. That's when I started connecting with a lot of people and realizing that there was, it was a lot bigger than just me, and there's a lot more people that were being affected by it. And just because I stopped gambling doesn't mean I stopped being impulsive. I basically went, the energy and effort I put into gambling, I started putting into Kicking the Punt, and it was maybe unhealthy. It maybe still is unhealthy, the amount of shit I do for it. But it saved my life, mate. Like doing what we do, it's like, it just keeps it every day. Every day since we started Kicking the Punt, every single fucking day, I've had a conversation, or the messages are endless across all our platforms. People asking for help, loved ones. It's not just gamblers, it's loved ones, it's parents, it's the whole lot, mate. And I feel really humbled to help a lot of people. Like a lot of people, you have a conversation with someone who's lived the same life, you're going to get a lot more out of it, in my opinion, than going and talking to someone that might have a counselling or psychology degree but might not know what the fuck you've gone through. I'm not knocking it. I just think there's, more. I think there needs to be more professionals that understand. I'm studying counselling now because I think that using my lived experience, I'll be able to help people in that field long term, in a professional and a peer support sense. But I found for me personally that the peer support stuff is what really sort of drove it home, and then I became angry, and then I became hungry to help people, and I'll never look back, and I'll never stop helping people until something, it's always going to be here. But we both know things can be a lot different and be dealt with a lot better than what they are now. So that's the short version of my gambling story, I suppose. We talk about it at length, but we don't have time for that. And and I'm just grateful to be sort of sitting here and doing stuff like this, and I'll continue to do it. And it's nice to be able to watch. It's nice to be able to. One more thing, all right, and this is probably a bit of a contentious thing, but I don't believe recovery is forever. I know people can sit there and go, I'll never gamble again. I was one of those persons that did that, and lo and behold, I gambled again. But obviously, I'm a year off gambling now, and I will never gamble again while I do what I do with Kicking the Punt, because how could I? The amount of people I speak to, the amount of people we help, it's not just me. There's other people that are a part of Kicking the Punt. There's a whole community, like we said, but there's other people that are in leadership positions within Kicking the Punt that do exactly what I do, but I'm just the ugly mug that gets put all through the social media, so people just automatically assume it's all me, and it's really not. There's other
is it not? I presumed I was that mug that thought it was just you.
I do a lot. There's no doubt about it. There's my wife. She co-founded it. She's done heaps for people, especially partners of the loved one or whatever, or friends, family that are struggling. there's a lady named Shonika Guy who is in our leadership group, and she's incredible, mate. Like she's been doing this shit for over 10 years, like just soldiering on before it become, not that it's a current issue, but it's spoken about a lot more, you know, now than it was in 10 years ago. She's been doing it, like running support groups and, you know, basically since she stopped. And we are very similar in the way we think as far as what needs to be done. There's another guy, Dan Saunders, who, you know, he's our vice president of Kickin The Punt, and he went to jail for gambling, and he does what I do. Like, he talks to people. We just want to help people, but we also want to make the industry uncomfortable as well. We love doing that, and he's a big part of that. There's another lady that I won't refer. She doesn't want to be named, but she's no longer working with us as far as a leadership thing, but I will refer to her as AK, and she was instrumental at the start as well. You know, there's plenty of people. There's another guy who I won't name, but he knows who he is, and they're just people that silently work in the background. And then there's people that have that we've helped, like a bloke named Warren who was homeless in his car, and, you know, basically on death's door. We had a phone call April last year, turned his whole fucking life around. Like, he's no longer homeless, but now he just helps people as well. That's what he loves doing it now. So there's plenty of us. Like, it's like COVID, mate, but it's like it's spreading. Like, you beat it, and then you go and help others. And then they go beat it and help others, and then before you know it, like, fuck the government, fuck all these fake people that, you know, don't do anything about it. We just do it ourselves. That's why we're a community. That's what we're doing. That's where our focus is helping people on the ground, in the trenches, turn their fucking life around so they can then go do the exact same thing. And that's, in my opinion, is where we win.
It's so inspiring. It's so inspiring. Sorry, you gonna? I interrupted you. What were you gonna say? Something? Sorry, I interrupted your flow.
No, you're right.
I've got a tack for that, interrupting people's flow. I just wanted to quickly ask, because I've been fascinated by this this campaign that you recently did. Tell us more about Domino's Pizza. So, I mean, just look, for the listeners' benefit, I hope I'm correct here, but Domino's Pizza started to do something on their website to do with gambling. And you ran a campaign, and you kind of pulled together your your followers or your community, and a lot of people then got in touch with Domino's, I believe, besides obviously your email, I think, and they pulled the plug on it. I mean, could you tell us more about that? I mean, that is amazing, by the way.
Yeah, I didn't expect that kind of response. But like, I think the thing with corporations is they're very protective of their image. Basically, we get sent shit all the time. Like, yeah, we've got thousands of people in our community now, but like, for the thousands that you see, there's 10,000 more that you don't see, like through messages and, you know, engagement and phone calls, and people that want to be in the dark because they're either in the industry and they're afraid or whatever it may be. Like, we get the whole fucking lot. Like, wow. We're across the full spectrum, like, of this whole issue, like even industry, blah, blah, blah. One of the people that we speak to quite regularly, ordering a pizza, and then there's like a survey advertisement thing they do at the end when you order a pizza over here in Australia, and it was, you know, betting companies offering, like, sign up to Ladbrokes and get a $100 bonus bet. And he sent it to me, and I was like, look, like, I try not to get too heavy involved into that kind of space with this shit anymore, because I'd done a lot of it and it didn't really get anywhere. But I was just like, fuck this. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, how many kids get their parents' debit card on a Friday night and order pizza while they're watching the footy or whatever, watching the soccer, whatever it may be. The kid sees that and then goes, oh, fuck, like, I think this is $300. Like, I can just use this. Everybody, the kids are smart. Like, the kids are way smart. It takes everything what we were when we were in our teens. But they sign up and they're exposed to gambling. I thought it was a fucking disgrace. So I was like, I got to do something about it. So I jumped on Instagram, had a bit of a crack at Domino's, as I do. I probably could articulate myself a bit better sometimes, but I really don't give a fuck. Like, I just said it. I called it for what it was. Sent the CEO an email, got a response, and then asked, members in our community to send emails as well. I think they got maybe over 100 emails, and it was all different emails.
Yeah.
And they pulled the pin on it. They pulled the whole pin. They no longer advertise any gambling advertising whatsoever. So it just goes to show, and it wasn't like their advertising is handled by a third party. So what would have happened is, like, when you get a pizza, you put your email in, and then if you've used your email with any betting companies, they then I'm not too up to speed on how the technical side of thing, but then they get that advertisement gets targeted to that particular person.
Got you.
So it's a way for advertising, like Ladbrokes, etc., sports betting companies, to bypass people's self-exclusion shit as well, where they don't get promotion anymore. So they use that as like a gateway to be able to get access to that person again without bringing themselves into disrepute. So it's a whole fucking elaborate thing. But Domino's, they obviously looked at it and saw merit in what we were saying. I mean, the way I put it was pretty brutal, but other people would have put it a lot better than what I do. And yeah, they agreed, and then they pulled the pin on it. And credit to them for doing it, because that's fucked up. Like, you don't want kids. It's hard enough as, some bloke who works his ass off all week, he's just self-excluded from all the sports betting apps and orders his kids a pizza and goes, here's your $300, have a crack. Fuck that. Like, that's shit. Like, you can't, like, that has, that's fucked up. And I would have took it as far as I had to have taken it to get some kind of response. There wasn't really any campaign around it. It literally happened within 24 hours. It was dealt with.
Yeah, it was so quick. It was so quick. Yeah.
But yeah, and there's a lot of good organisations out there at the moment, both in the UK and Australia, that fuck around, like, that are trying to get reform. They fuck around too much. Just be short and sharp to the point. Just take it straight on. Go, this is fucked up. This is why it's fucked up. Do something about it. If they don't, then continue to push until they do. Most of these bigger, corporations and stuff will listen, and they have intelligent people that work for them, and they'll see merit in what we're trying to do. And a lot of other organisations, I won't name any organisations, that are trying to do the right thing as far as gambling reform, but are too preoccupied with who they might offend, or whether they say the wrong thing, or they might overstep. Fuck that. We're not here to. We're here to fix this fucking thing. We're here to protect people. People like us who have lived that life, like, we know what it's like. We both know what it's like. And then you take it to another thing where you get at least one person a week, if not more, that's suicidal. We get, and I had one this afternoon, like, on the way home. I can work all day, went and got a new tattoo, completely exhausted, driving home. I'd love to listen to a podcast there, but I was on the phone to this guy trying to just get him to not end his life. And that to me is like, that's why I come across the way I do, because I don't have time for bullshit. My time's precious. Like, I've got a business that I put 40 or 50 hours a week into. I've got KTP that I put 30 hours a week into. There's not much room left for my family in that, or myself. So I don't have time for bullshit. That's the way we roll with Kickin The Punt as far as that particular aspect of what our community is. We don't fuck around. If we see something, we'll do something about it, or we'll make it very clear that we don't like it. And that's in my opinion, is the best way to be. And again, good on Domino's for doing the right thing, because it would have caused a lot of damage if that was to continue. I'm glad that person, he knows who he is. I'm glad he brought it to our attention, because otherwise, we might not have saw it. But we get shit like that all the time. That's just like a bigger one to sort of, I suppose, celebrate, because it's a bit of a big deal, because it's a big corporation. So we do shit like that all the time.
Yeah, I was just astounded to firstly see it, but then also to see that, as you say, within 24 hours, the thing that, the plug had been pulled. So yeah, that's just kudos to everything you do and what it's all about. I mean, look, I feel like I could talk to you forever. I mean, I've got a bunch of questions that, to be fair, you've ticked off like throughout your story. That's been incredible to listen to. I was welling up halfway through. It made me really upset because your story is so powerful, and you know, really inspiring. And I love everything that you do and everything that you're about. I don't know. Have you got anything else that you wanted to kind of add? I mean, I feel like I could kind of dive into so many different directions here. Thoughts on the gambling industry.
Yeah, I'll try and touch on that a little bit. I'll be brief because I know
Yeah.
I've sort of chewed up. I have a tendency to go on a tangent, so I apologise for that. But when I talk about this sort of stuff, it does get the blood flowing because I do care. Like, I'm very passionate about it. The industry is a complex beast. I'll talk from an Australian perspective. You guys are leaps and bounds ahead of us as far as where you guys are in the UK as far regarding reform. And it's nice to see that because I do think like that's where we might be in 10 years, maybe where you guys are now. The conversations, you know, your politicians, whether regardless of their intention, are trying to do the right thing. And you've got a lot of guys like yourself, Big Step. There's heaps in gambling ads. Gambling with Lives. There's heaps of really solid organisations that are doing good work over there, and I think it's a credit to all of you guys that are doing that because that's what's making the difference. People with lived experience stepping up to the plate, putting themselves out there, and getting shit done. So I respect that, and that's what, you know, a big part of what I've started to do is because of what you guys do. Because I go, look, it fucking works, so I'll do the same thing, and it works here too. The industry over here is fucking toxic. Like, I suppose it's like that everywhere. We've dealt with the industry, different aspects of the industry. It's very predatory over here. It's geared to condition and addict people. I suppose it's the same anywhere in the world, but they're very well entrenched over here across our whole political spectrum as well. They donate a lot of money to major political parties. They buy a lot of academics. A lot of the research around gambling addiction and gambling harm is funded by, you know, whether it be directly or indirectly, by the gambling industry, by two academics that are fucking puppets of the gambling industry. Then that policy then goes to whoever it may be in government, and then that research then dictates, you know, any kind of reform or policy that's put on the table to deal with this issue. Over here, it's fucked up. Like they say, between 1% and 4% of people are problem gamblers. I try 40 or 60% of people that are problem gamblers. Again, I don't like that fucking word, but I mean that's what everyone uses, so that's what we'll call it. You know, I've dealt with the industry. I've spoken to people who used to be in the industry at the high levels. We've spoken to people that are still employed within the industry at a really high level, whether it be poker machines, racing, sports betting, you name it. We've had the conversation, and it's a toxic culture, and it's driven by people that just love to be, you know, in power, and they do what they do, and they sleep at night because they dehumanise people like you and us. They, you know, we're no better than shit on the end of their shoe. That's the way they look at people like us. They don't view us as actual human beings, because if they did, they'd shut it all down, because they know exactly how much damage is being caused to people, especially poker machines, you know, in clubs. The people that work in there, you know, they're like mini casinos, especially down in Sydney and, you know, in the bigger towns and cities. Like they're big, elaborate operations, and they understand exactly what the fuck goes on. You know what I mean? Like, to give you, they always say certain things like, how can we identify people who have a problem? You know, where I step foot I guarantee if I step foot in any fucking club in New South Wales right now, I'd be fucking surrounded by security within 10 minutes, 100%. I can guarantee that. I bet my left nut that would fucking happen. So if they can spot me in that sort of, and it's happened like the last club I stepped foot in. Yeah, when we were filming doing the footage and stuff for the documentary we did about Gary, we went to the main place he gambled, DYRSL, at 10 o'clock at night, and like within 10 minutes we were surrounded by security and asked to leave for no fucking reason, because they knew who I was. Like, so if they can identify me within 10 minutes, they can identify someone who's losing fucking their life to gambling. But they choose not to, because the whole industry is propped up by the blood of addicts, and that's the way it's been for many, many decades here. But hopefully things might start to change, you know. And I don't know where I feel. I don't know how I feel about the whole reform sort of space and discussion, because I feel, again, like a lot of it's watered down and a lot of it's like people trying to not offend fucking this political party or whatever. Like, fuck that. Like, call it for what it is, to do something about it, or move the fuck on and let someone do something about it that wants to actually do something about it. It frustrates me to no end, that bullshit. I understand it. I'm not a dumb dude. I understand that there's a process. I understand that things move slow in that space, but I also understand that people are fucking killing themselves because of gambling addiction, and it's absolutely abhorrent that that's still happening in 2021. Like, you know, with all the stuff that's out there, with all the mental health stuff, with all the discussion around it, and people still think that that's a viable option to end addiction. To me, that's not acceptable. So it's a tricky thing, the industry. It's been there for a long time. A lot of old white dudes pulling the strings. Not a racist, but that's it. It's an old guard, old white men that love power. They're just sitting there around a table. They don't give a fuck who they are. They just want to make as much money as they can, which is absurd, because they're all wealthy as fuck anyway, so why would it matter? But again, it's just the old guard. Hopefully things can change. We do have a lot of people that are high level in the industry currently, and you know, ex-employees. So we do get a lot of good information that we just sort of are compiling at the moment. And there is, you know, I shouldn't rubbish all politicians, because there is some good politicians over here in Australia that generally do give a fuck. Like, you can tell them from a mile away whether it's just something they want to have a chat about to clear their conscience, or whether they actually do want to do something about it. But it's a complex situation for them as well. It's not like they can jump up and down and shit happens. It's a whole game that they've got to go through. But I'm just holding on to the hope that hopefully Australia follows the UK suit, because what you guys are doing is pretty fucking cool. And, you know, the conversation is well and truly alive over there. And hopefully we can follow suit.
Fingers crossed. I mean, actually, one thing I look upon Australia with envy is the fact that in Australia, there's a blanket ban on gambling ads between a certain time of day. Whereas over here in the UK, like, there'll be gambling ads throughout the day. I mean, mostly after the watershed, but like in Australia, I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's a blanket ban between sort of like 5 a.m. to 8:30 at night, so kids can't kind of get exposed to it. I
actually don't know. I'll find out for you, because I feel like I do see a lot more of them, mate. I don't know if that's changed recently or not. I will find out for you, because I don't really watch TV anymore. Like, I don't have time for it. But when I watch the footy, like, if I put the footy on a Thursday night or a Friday night or a Sunday afternoon, fucking every second ad is a gambling ad. Like, it's, and then if there's racing, carnival, or cricket, it's all advertised. It's more, you're right, it's more stringently controlled over here as far as timings, but it's definitely more targeted. Like, instead of saturating it throughout the day, they then saturate the fuck out of it like an hour before the game. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's just like, you can't even watch the game without getting
I know, it's mad,
blown away by it. Like, it's just like, it's fucking annoying more than anything. But that's sort of like, it's not even about the game anymore. It's about the line you bet on, or fucking first try score, or first goal kick, or whatever it may be. Like, that's what it's become for a lot of people, and I think that's pretty sad. But yeah, I don't know, mate. Like, it's again, that's a tricky situation. But I think, again, what I said a while back is, it's people like us having an honest conversation about it what makes the difference. It's not because you and I are special human beings. We're just having an honest conversation, and people respect that. In a world we live in is full of dishonesty and deception. Like, even at the government level, like, no one trusts the government anymore, because you can never keep up what the fuck's going on. You know, and when people see honesty, deception's more prevalent than honesty these days. So when people see honesty, they take notice, and that's proofs in the pudding. KTP started with, I don't know, 40 people who are our friends, and we have got thousands of people, over 10,000 engagements a week, like messages, comments, fucking phone calls, text messages, emails. And it's just there's four of us that deal with it, but we do because it's important. And I look at every single one. So, again, it humbles me. It keeps me safe. Like, it keeps me safe from gambling, like doing this shit, you know. And gambling's always going to be here, so I'm always going to be doing this shit. So, I've found my thing that stopped me from doing it.
Yeah, I can relate a lot to that. Definitely. Before we wrap things up, Ben, what advice would you give a young Ben Hamilton? If you could go back in time, what advice would you give yourself?
Yeah, look, I thought about this the other day. Like, if I, 2016, when I really started to go, okay, fucking something needs to change, even though it took me 3 odd years. If I found something like Kickin The Punt or your podcast or, and the myriad of things that are out there now, I think I really would have maybe done way less damage to myself, because I would have found that there was other people like me, and I would have been drawn to that. I have a structure with people that I use to help people, and I'll go through it quickly. If you want to beat gambling, in my opinion, this is what you have to do, and in this order as well. First thing you do is have an honest conversation with someone that's in your life, that's a significant person in your life. You have to be brutally honest, no half-truths. You have to tell them exactly what the fuck's going on. You just have to do that. Then you need to surrender your finances completely. You can't stop gambling if you still got access to money. Okay, you just have to do it. Completely surrender it to someone you trust. Don't go and give your bank cards to some random dude on the street. It has to be someone you trust. Third thing is professional support. You've got to link in with a psychologist. Most gamblers have trauma that hasn't been addressed that they need to address, and it's a coping mechanism. And it's an industry that's a predatory industry that's brilliantly set up this thing that fucking continuously rapes people, but you get something out of it, but you still fuck your life up even more. The fourth thing is peer support. What we're doing now, having an honest conversation, engaging in it, being a part of a community that understands you, drawing on that community's experience, people that have been doing it, whether it's GA, whatever it may be. Personally, I don't really like it. GA, it never worked for me, but a lot of people have, and it's saved a lot of people's lives. So there's something like GA, whatever. Could be listening to your podcast once a week. It's keeping it current in your mind. You need peer support. You need to talk to people that have walked the walk and talked the talk, just as what you have, because it makes it easier. The fifth thing, get a financial plan together. Don't worry about your finances straight away. It's not going to change overnight. You fucked yourself. Just put that aside, deal with that once you've got all these other beautiful things up and running. The sixth thing is make amends to people that you fucked over, including yourself. But you can't, again, people always try and make amends at the start, and it never works because no one believes you at that point. Your actions speak louder than your words. So you make amends towards the end. The last thing you do is you help other people, and that's what keeps you away from gambling. Whether it's Alex starting a podcast and having a discussion about it, that's helping people, that's reaching people. You don't have to do what we do, you don't have to do it every day, but you might see someone down in the pub who is struggling, and you might just go talk to them. They might tell you to fuck off, they might punch you in the face, but at least you tried. That's the thing. You've got to help other people, and that's what is the best defense to beating the addiction. And if you can do all that, you'll beat it. You don't have to be in recovery for the rest of your life. That doesn't mean that you're completely immune from gambling. I use an analogy of, say, if you have a partner and a child together and you separate and you fucking hate your partner's guts, okay, that's fine. But every time you do the kid swap or the handover with the kid, you don't disrespect your ex-partner in front of your children. So there's a respect thing. It's the same with gambling. I have beaten gambling. I can say that because of what I do, all right? And it's a unique situation. But I still respect gambling for what it is. I'm not going to go and sink 12 beers after this call with you and then go and sit in the pub and think that I'm not going to gamble, because I probably fucking will. It's about having that respect after you beat it. and not trying to beat it until you're ready to beat it. And you can't beat it unless you put, in my opinion, those things in place. Plenty of people have sat there and told me through the years as a young man that, you know, you shouldn't do it, or you're gonna fuck your life up. That didn't do anything for me. But people didn't really understand what it was. You know, like, and I think now there's a lot more people out there that understand and are trying to help other people. So you just got to find those people and listen to. You don't have to listen to me. You might not fucking like me. That's fine. But you find someone that you do like and listen to them. Someone that's beaten it, because there's plenty of people out there that have beaten it and that are trying to help other people. And they will help. They will be able to point you in the right direction or keep an eye on you. And you have to make sacrifices when you want to beat it as well. But it's sacrifices that long term are going to benefit your life more than anything else you could have dreamed of. But in the short term, it seems like a huge sacrifice, like not going to the pub or staying off alcohol for a while. Like, there's certain things you've got to do, because if you don't do it, like, you're just going to find your way back into that space. And it's something that can take your life. So again, it needs to be treated with respect, and it has to be treated with respect. And that's basically it, mate. Like, that's basically what I tell every single person, that, you know. But honesty is the biggest thing, because in my opinion, it's the cycle of deception is what really drives people to gamble, and they get into that cycle of deception. That's what needs to be addressed. And if you're completely honest all the time, you know, it's going to be hard to be deceptive when you're just trying to be honest about what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, 100%. It's like pivoting like 180, isn't it? From the deception and the lies and stuff. And
100%. Yeah, it's not. It's a hard thing to do. And, you know, like, the hardest thing I've struggled with since I've stopped is trying to remember what it felt like to do it. Like, I don't feel like, and it's scary, because it's like, it's not the numbness, but I don't feel anything towards gambling anymore. And, you know, I think it's because I've become so desensitized. Like, I still care. Like, I still feel people that are in pain. Fuck, don't get me wrong. But, you know, plenty of nights where I just cry in the shower because I'm, what about this person and this person? Wonder if they're all right. And, you know, I missed someone's phone call, and then I found out that they're gambling, and they were trying to call me because they're like, fuck, like, you know, I'm a human being. Like, fuck, I can't be on it all the time, and that's tough. But it is what it is, you know. But the hardest thing is I don't know what it feels like anymore. And, you know, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but whatever. It's such a big thing to do. But when you do it, what I can tell you is that it's the best thing in your life. Like, you know, I fucking unfortunately got to work tomorrow, but usually on a Saturday morning I'll wake up and I'll be sober, and my little boy will be happy, and my wife might be happy, depending if we've had an argument the night before or not. But I'll take my little boy down to the park with a coffee, and he'll go on the swing, and we'll just literally just be completely free in my mind. Like, every other morning as a young man, wake up on the weekend and work out how much money I had left, how I could gamble, if I didn't have money, who I could borrow money off, who I borrowed money off the night before, how I was going to tell them I didn't have the money. Fuck that. Imagine waking up and all that shit just runs into your mind the first thing. I wake up now and my life is my life's peaceful, like, now that gambling's not in it. And that's why I try and remind people, like, it's so much better that when you stop. Like, it's not a cliche thing to say, it really is. You know, we could switch off Kicking the Punt right now, and I could just crack on with my life, and it'd be a lot simpler. But I will never do that, because there's just too many people out there that are getting hurt by it, and that just doesn't sit right with me. So just always remember that your life is a lot better without gambling, and never give up. It doesn't matter how fucked up you think your situation is. Like, seriously, human beings are really resilient, and you can literally be on death's door and turn it around. It doesn't take long to turn it around. It took me 12 months, and my life's been better than it ever has. So never give up.
Oh man, that's so inspiring. It's so inspiring. Well, look, Ben, it's been, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, probably our main platform is Instagram. So you can search Kickin The Punt without the G, and you'll find us there. A lot of people have shared their stories. It's a good spot to get a bit of inspiration and to see other people and, know you're not alone, I suppose. Good spot to get in touch with me as well. I read every single message and I respond to every single message. So if you want to get in touch with me, that's the best spot. We've got a Facebook group. There's a Facebook page, but that was just purely for the Instagram thing. But there's a Facebook group that's got 1,000 members in it. That's just, people that like us that have battled it. You got loved ones in there. You got psychologists, social workers, fucking you name it, they're there. So ex-industry members. So you can post something in there and you'll get some really good perspective on anything gambling related. And you don't have to just be the addict. You can be the wife or the son or whatever, or you can be a professional as well if you want to, want access to a pretty good pool of people that would be good for some actual real research that would actually do something. Feel free. If it's a good thing, we'll back it. And then we've got a little thing on Twitter, a little presence. We're still sort of new to the whole Twitter thing, but yeah, that's our main things. And we're always there. We might always say to people, we will always respond. We might not respond straight away, but we will always endeavour to get back to you as soon as we can, and we'll always try and help people. We'll always try and help people until things change.
That's amazing. Yeah, I recommend anyone to give Kickin The Punt a follow, and as I say, just to follow your story. I mean, it's so inspiring. I mean, seeing what you're doing now, you're going on like hikes and stuff like that, and yeah, like what you just mentioned about the simple things and waking up feeling fresh on a Saturday morning, grabbing some coffee, with your kid.
Priceless.
It's just
can't buy it. It's like no amount of money will. Money's not even like, since starting Kickin The Punt, I earned like 50 grand in the last 3 months or the last quarter of my business. But I've got more money in the bank than I've ever had because I don't fucking gamble anymore. Like it's just that simple. Like I'm not rich, but when you stop, everything gets better. So And one more thing, for anyone that's listening that's interested, in September, I'm riding 1,000 kilometres to basically from where I live to Parliament House in Canberra, which is where our government lives, to raise awareness for gambling addiction and suicide prevention. So we'll be looking for people to spread that message and get behind us and support us. I've already started training for it, and it should be a pretty good thing. So if anyone who's interested in that, feel free to get in touch about that as well.
That's awesome. Is it just you riding on the trip, or have you got a bunch of you? Or
so I'm not a cyclist, but like I did another podcast with a dude named Alan Davies, who's an absolute legend. He's an ex-pro cyclist, and I had the idea, and then he's going to coach me, and he's coaching me now. So
nice.
As it stands, I'm just doing it by myself. People are more than welcome to join in. I'm happy for that, but it's something that I want to do for myself. It's called Ride for G, for Gary, who we did a documentary about. Gary suicided because of his poker machine addiction. So every year, for the rest of my life, I'm going to do something for Gary, whether it's ride 1,000 kilometres or whether it's, I don't fucking know, something out of the ordinary. I'm just an average bloke, average tradesman. I'm not an athlete. But fuck it, like you do something out of the ordinary, gets a bit of attention, raises awareness, builds a community, keeps G's memory alive. Happy days.
Yeah, that's class. How long do you think it will take, by the way? 1,000? Is it going to be like, is that a few weeks? I really don't know my kind of measurements there, as it were.
Well, I hate saying shit publicly because I try and hold myself to it. Initially, I was thinking it's going to take 10 days, but with the way I'm cycling and the way I've been progressing, I might have a crack at a few records because I'm actually doing it right. I've got plenty of time to prepare for it. So I might, I don't know, realistically probably a week, 5 to 7 days.
Wow.
But I might do the last 500k straight if I can. If I'll probably be rooted at the end of it, but and I might shit myself a few times on the bike. But if that's what it takes to get noticed, then I'll do what I'm going to do.
That's awesome.
I won't say too much yet.
No.
Yet, but because if I say something, I'll fucking do it. So
Yeah. I
I don't
want to hold you to it. I'd love to, like, I don't know, maybe it's just because of lockdown, but I've got this like vision of traveling again, you know, just want to escape. But I've just got this vision that, because my brother's living down in Sydney at the moment, and I really, really want to get out and visit. But it'd be amazing to, I don't know, to be on that finish line for you.
That'd be great, mate. The more the merrier. Yeah, it'd be lovely to meet you as well. And if you can come over in September, come over, because that's when I'll be doing it.
That'd be incredible.
First of September, I'll be stepping off, and yeah. Last Sunday I did my first 100 Ks. So I did it in 4 hours and 18 minutes, I think. And I had a broken toe as well, so
wow,
I had a fairly good crack at it, and did it in a reason. I was pretty happy with it. So yeah, so I'm pretty excited now. It's definitely realistic to at least do 150 Ks a day. That's what I'm going to aim for. And if I do more than that, well, then that's great. But
awesome.
Along the way, we want to stop and, you know, cause a bit of mischief with the industry and, you know, do some shit, make some people uncomfortable within the industry, certain places. I don't know. We'll pay a few people to visit and make things uncomfortable for them as we do. Nothing like aggressive or hurting people, of course, but just getting in, just making the industry uncomfortable. They don't like the spotlight on them, and I love putting the spotlight on them. So we've got some shit planned for along the way as well. So it should be pretty entertaining for everyone involved.
That's great. It's great. Are you planning to record it, get some footage and things like that? Maybe put it into a documentary again?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, like we'll definitely, yeah. It'll all be recorded and it'll all be put together, and we'll definitely do something with it. And we'll be doing some stuff along the way, and they might turn out to be something pretty big. A few of the things that we've got planned. Again, I won't say it because I don't want to ruin the surprise for the industry. But we'll, yeah, it'll definitely be worthwhile keeping up to date with what we're doing, and the whole thing will be put together at the end. Because again, it's Ride for G, and you know, I know I've had a lot to do with Gary's, his mum and his sister, and you know, they're lovely people, and his story, like, you know, we won't have time to touch on his story now, but there's a documentary there, and it's in search YouTube. Just search Kickin The Punt, you'll find it. We don't have much shit on YouTube, but it's there. And his story, I remember watching it. It was, you know, in 2018 as well, and it's just, I always said I would do something for him, and I have. I've done the documentary, and I'm proud of that. And we funded it through our community. My wife and I, you know, we put up a bit of money for it, so it was all self-funded by our community, and I'm really proud of what we did with it. And yeah, I just think it's just, you know, it's one of those stories. Like his story was national news over here briefly, and because of how fucked up it was, and now it's kind of sort of like forgotten. And I mean, there's plenty of Garys out there. Like there's a Gary every day here in Australia, if not more, and it's the same in the UK. But you know, and there's people just go unnoticed. So I think, you know, once a year do something for G to keep his memory there, and more so like just he's like a representation of everybody that's lost their lives to this shit. And it's just as we both know, people shouldn't be losing their lives to gambling. No. It's just not acceptable. It's not like it's fucking, you know.
It's preventable. It's so preventable.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. It's preventable. It's not necessary.
No.
So yeah, that's yeah. Thanks for letting me plug that in at the end, because I'm pretty excited for it. And yeah, should be a good thing.
That's awesome. It's awesome. Is there anything else before we finally kind of say our goodbyes? Is there anything else that you want to sort of mention or anything like that? Are you happy with everything you've discussed today, or is there anything else?
No, I just want to say thank you to yourself, mate, for what you're doing, and it's been my pleasure to be on here, and I've followed you for a while with you and what you're doing. I've seen you start this thing up from scratch, and I know it's not easy to do something like this, but I just want to say thank you for what you're doing, mate. So, you know, it's a privilege to be here to sit down and have a chat with you, and I hope you keep doing what you're doing. I've got one question for you. It'd be pretty funny. You know, our mate from The Big Step.
James, yeah.
Do you reckon he looks like Ed Sheeran? You reckon he does? I think
Okay.
James is an absolute legend. I've talked to him a lot. He's a good bloke.
Yeah.
I call him Ed Sheeran because he fucking looks like Ed Sheeran. When I first saw him, I got excited because I was like, "Guys, Ed Sheeran's he's keen on what we're doing."
Oh my god! Oh my god! Do you know what? I've never thought of that, but now you said it.
Well, sorry, James, I'm putting it out there because
James will be
he's a
listening. I
good-looking
know you'll
man.
be. Yeah.
He's a good-looking man. He looks like Ed Sheeran, and I think that
Oh.
what he should do, the big step, is pretend that he's Ed Sheeran because he'd get more people on board, and they might speed up the process in the UK.
Yeah. Oh dear, Ed Sheeran. Yeah, I'm gonna call him Ed from now on. Oh my
I call him
goodness.
Eddie. Yeah, I do. I don't know if he likes it, but I think
It's endearing. It's endearing, right? It's endearing.
it is, mate. Yeah, it's not. I'm not putting shit
Oh.
on him. It's a nice thing. I wish I looked like Ed Sheeran.
Oh, wow. There's I played on a cruise ship, and we were back in this Gary Barlow tribute. Do you know Gary Barlow in Take That? I don't know if Take That are a big hit down in Australia, but
No,
he looked like he was impersonating this Gary Barlow, and he was the same age. He had the same hair. He looked like he a doppelganger, and
really.
the whole like all the rehearsals, like even on stage, he was just like, do not stop calling me Gary, because I kept calling him Gary. So don't call me Gary. And I'm like, sorry, Gary. I mean, sorry, John. So yeah, but maybe we could start a band. Maybe there could be a kind of gambling community band going on here. I don't know who you would be. I'm trying to think.
I don't know, mate. I'm pretty fucking I love singing. I'm not very good at it, but like I don't know. I might be able to be the MC, like hype the crowd up. Before.
Yeah,
that'd be me. I can do that.
There we go. We could get this thing going on. Yeah, we get a tour going on. I don't know about you, but that's what I love about this whole thing is you get to connect with people from across the world, case in hand, from across the country. And like you say, you have that kind of common thread, don't you? That you all have a shared experience. And like they say, the opposite of addiction is connection. And I've certainly found that through the podcast and stuff. So
yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's the truth. It's fucking great. Like,
yeah,
it's a good thing, mate. And I think that's the best thing. And I think that's why it's not going to be like this forever, because the more gambling becomes prevalent, the more accessible, the more in our face it is. It's just the harm acceleration will just fucking increase exponentially, and they're at that point now where they can't suppress it. They suppressed it for many years. Now they're at a point where they can't. And so it's not going to be like this forever. Like things will change. Gambling will always be there, but it'll be, people will know, like cigarettes, for example, when our grandparents were children, they were getting given free cigarettes at the shopping centre. Now people still smoke, but people know that if you smoke, there's a good chance you're going to fuck up your life long term. People don't know that with gambling. That's all I want to change. When people then know that if you gamble and you gamble long term and consistently, you're going to fuck your life up. I don't care who you are. That's just the reality of gambling. So if we can change that, we can change the way society views gambling. We can keep having honest conversations about gambling. We'll win. It's as simple as that.
That's a great place to end. Well, thank you once again, Ben, and I'll speak to you soon.
Sounds good, mate. Cheers for your time. Have a good day.
Cheers, you too.
See you, mate.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really do value your time, and it means an awful lot that you've taken the time out of your day to listen to the podcast. So, what part of the podcast could you relate to the most? Like Ben and Matt, did you have family members that were gamblers? Have you experienced those dark, intrusive, what is life all about? Those thoughts, that feeling of incredible loneliness and just really feeling completely alone. Perhaps you've stopped gambling and are now helping others like Ben and Matt, Ben with Kickin The Punt and Matt with Peer 8. Let me know. Let's start a conversation. Feel free to drop us a comment on YouTube, message on social media, or get in touch with me confidentially via email, info@theinvisibleaddiction.com. I read everyone's messages and I will always reply. I'd like to say a massive thank you to the sponsors of this episode as well, Talk Ban Stop and Bet No More UK. Talk Ban Stop is a partnership that combines practical tools with support to help you stop gambling and kickstart your recovery journey. It all starts with a chat. Yes, absolutely, it does. Bet No More UK are a charity helping people take back control of their life from gambling. Bet No More UK was established by individuals with lived experience of gambling harms who now use that insight and knowledge to help others. Massive thanks to the both of them. So, in the next episode of The Invisible Addiction, I'll be speaking to one of the UK's leading campaigners who's tackling football's relationship with gambling. Really looking forward to that one. In the meantime, take care, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will speak to you soon.